Here's a lesson in the economics of the last 2.5 centuries. It's one long chase. Someone invents a clever way of making money, others try to catch up. We were the first to industrialize, but they caught us. So we moved on by using our brains rather than our hands. Always trying to outwit our competitors. It's all about being more inventive. That has kept us ahead so far, but others are still out to steal, copy, or improve on what we do. In this program, we look at where this chase has taken us. Not to disaster, but to new industries based on brain power, like our pharmaceuticals or our technology. Or our film and other creative industries. Creativity and innovation are the lifeblood of the British economy. I'm in China, on my way to the enormous international fair in Shanghai, the Expo. I want to find out how Britain sells itself internationally. It's vital we sell more to the world to pay the bills that have arrived since the financial crash. But have we got anything the world wants to buy? In this series, we look at the manufactured goods we sell, at the services we export, and today, at the most nebulous sector of all, intellectual property. The Expo is a great place to show off our wares to 400,000 visitors a day. Every nation is represented here. Their pavilions are their shop windows. Luxembourg. Some are more successful than others. 160 years ago, we started these world fairs with our own great exhibition. Back then, we were secure in our role as workshop of the world. But the world has been catching up ever since. Now we're reduced to just one pavilion between the French over there, the Italians over here, and we're competing for attention with 186 others. But I have to say, our pavilion stands out in this crowd. Amid the bland stands and the ones that try too hard, ours is a shimmering beacon of originality. So striking and yet really quite subtle. But other countries sell themselves in a different way, with products. The French pavilion has wines on display. The Italians, fashion and Ferraris. Ours is less hard sell, it's more high concept. It's a wonderful idea. 250,000 seeds embedded in these acrylic needles. But you know, the only thing is, there really is nothing in here. For many, our empty pavilion symbolizes our economy. It's a big void, they say. We don't make anything anymore, so we have little to sell. Many feel were economically inadequate. Looking down on this thing from up here, you really get that sense of a link between economic activity and national identity. What do we do? What do we specialise in the world economy? What's our niche? What are we proud to produce? Well, to me, our pavilion perfectly symbolises the best of our economy, our inventiveness, our brilliant ideas. The question is, can we sell enough of them to get us out of our economic gloom? As the original industrial nation, Britain long ago discovered that being clever is highly lucrative. There's a rule in the modern economy: you make the most money by being first, by doing things that others can't do. We've made ourselves rich that way. A good example, the British company that transformed the world's skylines and made billions in the process. Yeah. It's about 200 metres, 240 metres or so to the top of the building. Wonderful view, wonderful view. The company that made the windows for this skyscraper tells you why innovation is such a big earner. One discovery goes a very long way. It can be replicated again and again. Now, this building has 3,960 panes of glass, and they weigh 350,000 kilograms. The glass was made by the St Helens firm Pilkingtons. Not only was this glass made in this country, but the process, the wonderfully innovative process which allowed this glass to be made, was developed in this country too. It changed everything. Virtually all skyscrapers are made using it. It's called the float glass process, and Pilkingtons invented it in 1952. It was theirs and theirs alone. And it took them from just being one of the pack to being well out in front.
St Helens is the greatest centre of glassmaking in the world. So let's begin with this kind of glass and tell the romantic story of one of the greatest industrial inventions of the age, the float glass process.
Before float, glass panes were made by pouring molten glass onto a plate. But there was a problem. The glass produced was rough and uneven. It had to be ground and polished by giant industrial machines. And this process was hugely expensive. After the Second World War, the demand for housing and cars created a massive need for glass. It was a race for manufacturers worldwide to develop a cheaper production process. In 1947, Pilkingtons found the first essential ingredient in the creation of a great innovation. A genius, engineer Alistair Pilkington. Oddly, he wasn't a close relative, but had the same surname. He experimented with the idea of producing perfectly flat, clear glass by floating it on molten tin. No one had made it work before. Early results suggested the method had promise, but converting this into an effective industrial process was an immense challenge. You can see the scale of his ambition by walking down the float line today. This bit is the Pilkington bit, the clever bit.
That's the float glass bit, yeah. So if you want to have a look through, Evan, you can see now, you can see the ribbon coming through.
Oh yes,
and you can see the nerve actually just
so the stuff rippling on the top is glass.
It's glass, yes, yeah.
Then came the second ingredient for innovation: money. In 1955, after only 3 years' development, Pilkingtons invested in a full-scale production line. It was a massive financial risk, soaking up all the company's profits month after month. stand back. You need to stand back. That's the flame's going to come out.
There you go.
Right.
Okay.
Is there a good end to put first?
So we just stand to one side and just...
A year after they started their test line running, they still weren't producing saleable glass from their molten tin process. And it was costing Pilkingtons a fortune.
Okay, just say, there you go, it's gone now. That'll melt its way in now.
It was the third ingredient that created perfect glass.
Wonderful.
Luck.
A certain critical part of the plant broke, and this changed its shape, and by this means we suddenly, to our surprise, found ourselves making our first saleable glass.
The whole section of the line of grinding and polishing, it could all go. You can see the glass here just comes out absolutely flat and smooth. After 7 years' toil and £7 million, equivalent to 130 million today, Alistair Pilkington achieved his goal, beating all competitors to making better, cheaper glass. So did that initial £7 million investment, which seemed like a lot of money in 1950s prices, did it pay off? Well, of course it did. Because this was A, so valuable, and B, no one else could do it, Pilkington didn't just have an innovation that created float glass, they had an innovation that generated enormous returns. Innovation pays. For its innovation, Pilkington made billions of pounds as other companies paid to use the technology. Today, the company's part of a Japanese-owned glass giant, but it continues to make glass here, to do research here, and it generates plenty of earnings for UK citizens. And you can jump on it, can you?
Yeah, yeah.
Can jump?
Yeah, no problems.
Oh, yeah. Seems to be safe. The huge rewards it earned through the decades derived from coming first. We'd all like that kind of success. So where should we look for it? Well, to understand this, think about the entire production process and the different stages in it. Call it the value chain. When it comes to earning a good living for ourselves, we have to produce things that are valuable, things people will pay for. Now, a lot of us assume that means manufacturing them. But that's naive. There are 3 major steps of value creation in the production process. And the first is about the magic of creativity. Yes, the first is coming up with a new product or process, like Pilkington, built on the research of scientists and engineers. Only then comes part 2, the manufacturing, the machine in the middle that churns out the product. This is the tangible bit of the process. Now, this does add value, of course it does, but less than you'd think, as so many nations can do this well. Then there's the third step, the marketing, advertising and branding. Teams of people coming up with innovative ideas to make products appealing. Now, in the modern value chain, it makes sense for us, with our brained-up workforce, to innovate in the first stage, coming up with the idea, and the third, selling it. That's where the biggest bucks can be made. I know it's not a very British example, but let's get a measure of this. One study broke down the cost of a $300 iPod. Now, most of the price goes to the retailer and to the people who supply all the components that go inside. But on the back it says, designed by Apple, assembled in China. Well, for the design, Apple get about $80. For the assembly, China gets less than $5. That is the value of creativity and branding. I've said the global economy is like a chase. The more advanced economies like ours run ahead with the skills to get to where the most money is and where the others find it hard to follow, to the end of the value chain. Of course, we do have a lot of problems at the moment. But the economy was right to concentrate on the most valuable parts of the value chain. More science at one end, more marketing at the other. And the science first is built on research and development, or R&D. Many companies have made the journey away from simple manufacturing towards more research-based output. The history of Britain's biggest spender on R&D, GlaxoSmithKline, illustrates the transformation. In the 1930s, Glaxo made dried baby milk under the slogan, "Glaxo builds bonny babies." But then came the Second World War. The discovery of penicillin offered a potential lifeline to wounded soldiers. But the problem was, scientists only knew how to make it in tiny quantities. Drug companies, including Glaxo, were asked to find a way of manufacturing penicillin in bulk. Its scientists worked day and night on the task. It was only towards the end of the war they'd accumulated a significant stockpile. On D-Day, the 6th of June 1944, 156,000 people landed on these very beaches of Normandy. On that day itself, 6,000 were killed, but 18,000 were wounded. Penicillin made an enormous difference here. Instead of saving 5 out of every 10 wounded, medics were saving 8 out of 10. Bolstered by refocusing its efforts on R&D, Glaxo emerged from the war a very different company. It had made a fundamental shift from the relatively easy task of manufacturing powdered milk to the tougher job of developing drugs. And when the NHS was founded in 1948, Glaxo was ideally placed to be a preferred supplier. It never looked back. The development of Glaxo mirrors that of our economy overall, from manufacturing things to manufacturing innovations and ideas. It illustrates how we've moved up the value chain. This is a perfectly natural evolution. As economies become more advanced, they have the resources to spend on research and education. As they spend more on education and research, they become more advanced. That's what progress consists of. And progress is exactly what we've enjoyed in Britain. And we need more of it if we're to pay our way. Our economy has moved into science-based industries. Pharmaceuticals is one of our most important. Its exports are worth £18 billion. Glaxo, now called GSK, is the world's 4th largest pharmaceutical company. None of that would be possible without R&D. I want to see what that looks like. This operation in Hertfordshire is where many of GSK's innovations originate. This is really a double facility, a factory and a research and development centre with 1,000 people in each. It isn't easy to invent or discover things, otherwise everyone would do it. And it's a risk. Andrew Whitty is the chief executive of GSK. So we have to dress up.
We do. There's a very strict protocol.
These are
jackets,
disposable lab coats, I think. Are they? They're sort of...
They are. They'll be recyclable.
There we go. And
So we need a pair of goggles here.
on.
Yep. And we should be good. Okay.
So, yeah, the cost of a new drug. What does a drug cost then?
Well, if you look for the industry and you take the total amount spent on R&D divided by the number of successful drugs actually launched or introduced, it runs at about £550 million each.
550 million, and that takes into account the cost of all the failures.
Of all the failures, which is really, I think, the only practical way you can look at it. Now, for a company like GSK, and I suppose for all of our competitors, we're all trying to beat that average.
How do you improve the odds? Well, GSK has discovered it works to get the right cluster of talent together in one place.
As science has evolved, it's becoming much more multidisciplinary, and actually the discoveries all occur on the interface of disciplines. So quite often you'll find an IT expert or an informatics expert or a molecular designer who uses computers sat next to somebody who does everything in a test tube. The two together make things happen.
Even with such a cluster of brains, it's not easy. It's back to that constant chase. You research to stay a step ahead, and then you watch others catch up.
If you succeed, you can make a very good return while you have a patent life. But when your patent goes, you will essentially make no money from that business going forward. That is what drives this industry. Many companies have not been able to reinvent themselves in that magic 10 years or so when you earn the reward. One of the worst things about my job, and a slightly adrenaline driven moment, is you get data at the end of a 15-year research program, and there is a moment where somebody opens the envelope and it either says success or failure. And the reality is that's what makes this such a high-risk and expensive business.
There's a vast amount of money coming into the UK economy from companies like GSK who specialise in research and innovation. But like Pilkington's, GSK innovates and also manufactures. This room churns out billions of doses of respiratory treatment each year.
Essentially, this is the line. This room here produces about 50 million packs of Seretide Advair a year for distribution around the world. And overall, the company last year sold £5 billion worth of Seretide Advair.
The manufacturing is clever, but the real value has been added by the investment in knowledge up front. And that knowledge is not just to do with the ingredients of a drug, but also ways of making it.
"20 years ago, this machine would have consumed the entire space in this building, probably would have had 20 or 30 people working on it, and you would never have had the kind of volume capacity you have today. You can see here, really, one person keeping an eye on this facility. 60 to 70,000 packs already coming off it. We'll get it up to a peak of about 108,000 when we've got it running absolutely full blast.
Advair Seretide is exported around the world. And even though GSK also has manufacturing plants outside the UK, we still earn money from them because the drug was invented here. The lesson from GSK and from Pilkington is that although they both manufacture, it's the brainwork and innovation that adds most value to what they do. So what's the logical conclusion of that? Companies that don't actually make anything physical at all. Nothing? How far can we push that business model? Can we really pay our way in the world by becoming a nation of boffins and geeks? Well, come to Cambridge, to the area outside the city known as Silicon Fen. 1,400 high-tech companies have sprung up in these business parks, employing over 40,000 people. It's an interesting feature that these more intellectual businesses like to be near each other, to be plugged in. They tend to cluster, just like the scientists in Glaxo Labs. One of the companies here has become the runaway success of the last decade. And what they do can be found inside virtually all the digital devices we take for granted. In here, mobile phone, right there, and somewhere here is a little piece of Britain. There we go. There it is, just under NEC. You can see it says ARM. It's a very successful company, one of our best, actually, and remarkably few people have actually heard of it. Unlike Pilkington or GSK, Arm Holdings focuses entirely on stage one of the value chain. They don't make processors, they design them. It's pure innovation, and it's valued at over £7 billion. Tudor Brown is its president. Hi. Tudor, hello. Heaven
Nice to meet you. Heaven.
Good to meet you.
Good to meet you too. I've heard a lot about you.
Well, I've heard a lot about you.
So come on through, let me show you some other technology here.
You wouldn't sort of know that this is one of Britain's most successful companies, would you? The most productive.
I don't know, how do you, if you go to any company?
It looks quite plain.
Well, there's no great buzzing machines or chemicals flying around. This is thinking and whatever.
Right.
So,
Wow, I like the artwork.
So those are just a couple of plots. Let's take you into an office here.
It's quite warm in here. That's obviously
Well, some of them like it warm.
the brain operates better at this temperature.
Clearly, some people wear hats even because they like their brain to be warm.
It may appear rather dull, but the designs being generated in this room are shaping the future of computing.
Some of the guys are actually hopefully doing some work.
ARM started in the early 80s, designing small but powerful chips for the British home computer market.
And actually, this chip here...
No touchscreen.
No. This chip here is the first ARM processor.
The chips were seen to have potential for small, portable products and drew the attention of a US computer company.
Along came Apple, actually, in 1990, wanting to create the Newton, the world's first PDA. So here we've got a Newton.
Goodness,
so this was why ARM, the company, was created. And now, you know, you could look at that and think, that's the iPhone. It's a bit bigger.
Hello.
It was a bit too slow, it was a bit too heavy, didn't fit in your pocket, but fundamentally that was the vision behind this product. But then what happened was, in the mid-90s, the mobile phone revolution started. And actually Nokia was the first company to adopt our technology.
And ARM power is in most of them, isn't it?
ARM is in pretty much every mobile phone, yeah.
And of course, as the phones become more sophisticated, they have more chips in.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's not as though...
If we go back to the Apple story, something like the iPhone or these smartphones have an awful lot of ARM technology in them.
You know, you've got chips in an iPhone without giving away your commercial secrets, which I'm sure you wouldn't do. I mean, what are Apple paying you for?
Well, remember, we don't make the chips.
No.
We license our designs to semiconductor companies who make the chips. And for that, we get a license fee. And then when they actually make the chips and sell them to companies like Apple or whoever, then they pay us a royalty. And we get a few cents off each chip. It's not huge.
No, but still, I mean, there are a lot of these around.
In the last year, 6 billion ARM chips have been made. You add all that up, it means the company is doing very well. Yeah.
And you don't, at any point, feel, it's sad that we don't make the chip. Maybe we should make the chip as well.
Not at all. We don't want to manufacture. If you go into the business of manufacturing, you have to build a factory that costs you $5 billion before you start. It's a hugely expensive game. We have no expertise in that. No, there are many other companies who are much, much better at that. We're damn good at what we do here, and that's what we want to keep doing. And Apple had the same problem.
It's right, of course, for the company to concentrate on the high-value work, and it's a huge contributor to the UK economy. But it does signal a problem with the intellectual property industry. Only the very cleverest can earn a living in it. We're not all as brainy as these guys.
Just come in here on the left, I think we'll see an office where there's actually some real hardware.
Oh. It raises the issue of how the rest of us contribute to the economy too. How big we need our unintellectual property industries to be. Ah, the playroom. The playroom.
Yes, it's playing in a way, but it's some semi-serious outcomes from the sort of thing we do. So this is some Lego that one of our guys here has created and built. It's a Rubik's Cube solver.
So to begin with, the phone is using its camera. You can see a live preview there pointing downwards to take an image of each of the faces of the cube, and it works out the solution. Actually, would you like to race it, Evan? Here's a cube that I scrambled just now.
I have a feeling your system will be better than mine. Okay.
So on your marks, get set, go.
Well, I think it's going to win. The key is to think of them as cubes rather than as surfaces, I think, isn't it? OK, he's won. Very nice, very nice.
So hopefully you can remember how to fly this. I'm going to pop it down about here. There we go.
So we've got these arm chips in so many different objects. You wouldn't... ARM has evolved from being at the centre of one of the most rapidly growing industries, mobile phones, to being partners of the computing world's giants. Up.
There we go.
Warren East is the chief executive of ARM Holdings. You are friends of, partners to, all the big ones, aren't you? Google, Apple, Microsoft, the three behemoths of American software, hardware culture. You're there with all of them.
Well, that's absolutely the philosophy of our business model. We enable and we don't pick winners. We believe in sharing a slice of a very big pie is a lot better than having the whole of a much smaller pie.
Come on, come back, come back. ARM's strength has been built around having a highly skilled and highly educated workforce. It's no coincidence that it's found in Cambridge. These old colleges are the key to Britain's modern success in research and science. Universities help companies innovate, and the economy reaps the reward. That clustering effect, it works in our favour in that great chase that is the global economy. Top talent likes to move to where other top talent is, so the more success you have, the more success you get. Now, the great hope for the British economy is that we remain front runners at this whole business of creating intellectual property. And that hope rests on the fact that it is quite hard for other countries to catch up with us. So you take a country like China, it can come to the West and buy a factory and remove it lock, stock and barrel, take it back home and replicate exactly what we're doing. But could it come and buy this? What is it? It's an academic business network. It's hard to get your hands on it. Clustering is great for the UK, and it's great for Cambridge. But there is a problem. Clusters suck in resources from elsewhere, so while Cambridge is packed with top-class firms, it's left other parts of the UK behind. The economy clearly needs jobs elsewhere, good industries in every corner of the land to use all of us, all the resources at hand. Well, we've seen how our economy has evolved towards the science end of the value chain. Now, we have to see how and why we've made another move over the decades to the other end of the value chain, where marketing, advertising and branding put the creative icing on the manufactured cake. When people enjoy a good education, they become more affluent. Their whole way of consuming changes. They have more time. They can afford more than basic subsistence. They begin to think about self-expression and what they say about themselves. Fair trade chocolate, it tells me that I care about other people, or that I can afford to care. The Italian and the Brazilian menu choices tell me how worldly I am. The newspapers remind me how clever I am. And then we have the dazzling array of different coffee choices, which says so much about oneself. I'll have a mocha with white chocolate, please. It's a funny thing, but the more affluent and the more educated consumers are, the more frivolous they tend to look. They seem to be more worried about the froth on the cappuccino than the coffee itself. And why not? If you've got enough coffee, maybe it's a bit of froth that you want. But there's a really interesting feature of modern economies. They tend to respond to those kinds of consumers. They adapt and produce things to serve the more trivial needs that rich consumers have. Douglas Adams puts it rather well in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I'll paraphrase his line. There are 3 phases of human development. Will I eat? What will I eat? And where should we do lunch? Well, Britain is in phase 3. Visit a supermarket in Britain or any advanced economy to see how much effort in rich countries goes into marketing, packaging, and all the fripperies attached. They may be frivolous, but they're valuable activities, elevating bog-standard commodities into something special. Right, let me walk down the biscuit mile. So many biscuits. Chocolate orange Viennese biscuits, plain chocolate butter biscuits, Oreos, of course, digestives. God, how much shortbread does a society need? Choc chip shortbread rings. Now, why would you have a hole in a piece of shortbread? What difference does that make, eh? Well, it makes it more pleasurable to eat, doesn't it? It costs the manufacturers a lot offering this proliferation of biscuit choices. But it makes money because enough consumers shun the cheaper, boring options. And because so many of our basic needs are fulfilled, we tend to worry less about quantity and functionality these days and more about the aesthetics of the products we buy, the packaging, the meaning they give us. Adding value through marketing innovation is one of Britain's strengths. Just as much as the work of a Glaxo Lab or a Cambridge Business Park, this is the natural direction for our economy to have taken. Every single item is designed to appeal to somebody, to add a little bit of colour to their life, to give them a little bit of identity. Here's now my favourite is down here. Here we go. Skinny water. Look, with the bottle in a nice skinny shape as well, for people who are concerned about their shape. As the world becomes more affluent, so consumers want more sophisticated products. We shouldn't regret being big players in the industries like design, marketing and advertising that serve these tastes. Exporting these skills helps us pay our way in the world. Britain's strength in this area goes right back to the 19th century. Sunlight soap was one of the country's great exports, working its way into the far corners of the world. It transformed humble Wirral grocers, William and James Lever, into multi-millionaires. Back in 1884, instead of cutting slices of soap from blocks, they pre-wrapped it and branded it Sunlight Soap. It was their guarantee that each bar was of the same standard as the last, and this idea was a roaring success. In 1886, they were producing 1,000 tons of soap a year. 10 years later, it had risen to 40,000. By the 1930s, it was the largest company in Britain. And today, as the global corporation Unilever, it continues to produce some of our biggest brands. A lot of people are apt to think it's all fluff. How can a nation earn a living or pay for its imports through marketing? Well, it may not make a living for everybody, but it can certainly make a lot of money. There's a revealing tale of the takeover of a company that's been one of Britain's best brand inventors. The company behind one of our greatest contributions to the world of confectionery, the Kit Kat. That company was Rowntree. In 1988, it was fought over by 2 Swiss food giants, Nestlé and Suchard, who wanted to buy it. After a long boardroom battle, a selling price was finally agreed that had the value of the brand at its heart.
Rowntree, the British firm who make Kit Kat and Smarties, are to be bought by Nestlé, the Swiss food giant who make Milky Bars. The successful bid topped all earlier offers at over £2.5 billion.
Morning.
Morning.
Roundtree's factories and machinery and so on were valued at £500 million. The value added by the brands accounted for much of the additional £2 billion.
If you look at just the manufacturing base or buildings alone, that doesn't explain at all the final price. It's all to do with Nestlé looking at those brands and thinking, with these properties, we can build a big, successful global franchise.
Nestlé paid handsomely for the brands. Britain pocketed the money. And Nestlé's investment in them has taken that old British Kit Kat into global markets that previously it couldn't afford to reach. Today, the seemingly innocuous snack bar has become a global super brand.
Dubai Airport has the privilege of being the single largest place where Kit Kats are sold in the world. Over a tonne of Kit Kats sold in Dubai Airport every single day.
17 billion Kit Kat fingers are sold every year in 70 countries. That's more than any other confectionery. Even under Swiss control, Britain continues to earn money from it. Nestlé invested in an R&D lab in York, and the city still makes 1 billion Kit Kat bars a year. A formidable demonstration of the value of a brand and its potential for export too. So, we've seen why there's an impeccable economic logic in Britain specialising in the high-value ends of the value chain, the science bit and marketing. It made us rich. But here's the bad news. It hasn't made us rich enough. There's a gap between what we've been buying from abroad and what we've been able to sell. And now we have bills to be paid. Hello, could you take me to China, please? That would be terrific, thanks. Now I want to see how much further our brain power and creativity can go to help close the gap. With many millions of new affluent middle class, China is the place our brand should be heading. Despite appearances, this isn't Reading or Basingstoke or any other British town. This is Thames Town, on the outskirts of Shanghai. It was a commercial venture built by Chinese speculators who used British architects Atkins to create a traditional British town. But when the rail link to it was cancelled, it became more of a ghost town. I'm sure the developers here really had intended it would be a thriving community. Retail, accommodation, apartments, houses. I must be slightly disappointed that really it's a kind of glorified film set. Every corner you go round, there are more people taking photographs. There's another group over there, look. Churchill. Corner store, just like any British corner store. And next door to the Apollo. It's sort of almost there, isn't it? Just not quite. I mean, this place brings up a bit of a worry I have about British brands and their success here. A worry that Britain is somehow seen as a rather sort of exotic backdrop, a curiosity, rather than the driving modern economy. Certainly we can sell, certainly we're good at marketing, but the worry is that we're just slightly better at marketing to ourselves than we are outside of our own country. But it doesn't take long in China to find one bit of encouraging news. are so many teas in China. There's one here that's good for the eyes. There's one that reduces the symptoms of excess internal body heat. The one I've got is a cleansing tea. It's a sort of Chinese detox. But of all the teas in China, guess which outsells its nearest rival by 2 to 1? Little bit of show and tell here. Yes, it's Lipton from Unilever. The Chinese buy around £300 million of Lipton's tea every year. If we can sell tea to the country that gave it to the world, surely we can sell anything. Looking around, there are some successes here, such as the luxury brand Rolls-Royce and Burberry. And retail giants Tesco's and Marks & Spencer have also got a foothold. Does that mean we can sell anything? Well, a test of how our brands are doing is to see if they're getting into the homes of the burgeoning middle classes. As we've seen in Britain, a rise in education and affluence leads to a more sophisticated consumer culture. And this is happening in China now. These are the people we should be targeting our brands at. This is Yuan Ming. She does what I do. She presents business programs. She also hosts Call Me Boss, the Chinese equivalent of Dragon's Den.
很有可能获得您兜里的一点钱是吗？有可能。
But where my programs reach a few million, Yuan Ming's are seen by tens of millions.
Hello, Yuan Ming. Hello, lovely to see you.
Who better to find out if British brands are reaching the affluent classes?
Come in, please. Yeah. One moment. Okay. Bye. 好了，拜拜。好，去吃奶吧啊，拜拜。
I want a bit of a snoop around. Because I want to see what sort of brands you buy, you know, what sorts of, whether you're a bit of a fashion person.
No, I'm not.
Not too much of a...
I'm a gadget-mania, see, I have an iPad.
Yeah, we've already seen number 1 there.
Let's check, maybe we have something in the
let's go have a look
refrigerator.
Yes,
This is, oh no, this is from France, I guess. Let's see what we have.
Qingtao beer.
Champagne,
You
no.
have, oh, champagne French, nice.
No.
What orange juice?
We have some, the
Spanish.
Oh, some
This is terribly depressing. You've got something from everywhere apart from Britain.
Well, I tried to find some British one. No.
No, it's not very British, is it? No,
In
it's
terms
actually
of
slightly depressing.
What do we
'cause-
have? What do we have?
Well, I don't know. I mean, this is what my quest is to find out.
I have Laura Ashley, and also I have some Earl Grey.
Phew, we got there. We got there. Laura Ashley. Thank you, Laura. I'd love to hear what your mum thinks.
Okay.
I mean, Rolls-Royce, you know, not the car.
Rolls-Royce, 对吧？劳斯莱斯英国的是吧？ Yeah. My mom said, "Is it British?"
She said, "Is it British?" Oh, how could you not know? Can we ignore the dumpling, by the way? We've slightly ignored the... My overriding impression is what a small player we are. It's hard work finding British products. I know we sold around £8 billion of exports to the Chinese in 2009, and the figure's growing, but it's not much considering their £3 trillion economy. We aren't selling enough yet, and the evidence in China is that it's not going to get any easier, because China itself is changing. Remember the chase? Some countries advance, others follow. Well, just as we concentrated on the most valuable sections of the value chain, that's exactly what the Chinese are beginning to do as their economy develops away from low-value manufacturing. Look at this advert for trainers from a Chinese sports manufacturer, Li Ning. It was made, in fact, by a British ad agency, but China clearly wants to own the brands as well as make the footwear. Thank you very much. Brilliant. Lovely. I've come to Li Ning's flagship store in Shanghai to see if China is catching up with the West in developing sophisticated brands. Cindy Wu is head of brand development.
Cindy Wu. Hello, Evan Davis. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Lovely store.
Welcome to our store.
So how long has it been like this? I mean, is this brand new, or is this...
Yes, this is actually our new flagship store in Shanghai.
It looks a little bit like Nike Town. Now, did you go to a Nike Town store and think, let's make it look like that?
Well, we just want to establish our own flagship stores, which could represent our brand.
This place looks good, if slightly familiar. But can Li Ning do anything more than copy Western brands?
Now, you've got to tell me about this swoosh, Cindy, OK? We've got this swoosh.
First of all, we don't call it a swoosh.
No, because that's what Nike call theirs. No,
we call it a logo, and you can see that there's actually a difference. This is our original logo, and then this is our new logo.
So you admit that one looks a little bit like some other logos, but this one's a bit more original.
Really? Well, actually, they come from different inspirations.
Right.
That one was inspired by the Chinese red flag flying on the podium. And this new logo came from one of the actions of our founder. He was a gymnast, and he has an action named after himself.
Oh,
with his feet split.
Position. Right,
yes.
Right. Now, there's something I want to ask you about these shoes
Sure.
over here, because I was looking at these earlier.
Well, they've got the branding bit. What about the science?
If you go to one of the established big manufacturers that we're all used to, they have teams of people designing these, so they really are good for the feet. Now, are yours just bits of sort of plastic and fabric, or are they designed? Have you got scientists working on them?
We have a lab established in Beijing, and then we have also established our Global Innovation Center in Portland in the USA.
So you really are putting a lot of money into...
Well, we believe that to become a world-class sports brand, we have to own our own technology.
They've also got the ambition.
We have gone through a lot of R&D product design plans to prepare ourselves to be one of the top 5 brands by 2018.
Top 5 Chinese brands?
No, top 5 sporting goods brands in the world.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So you really do have plans to be conquering the world. I mean in a good commercial way. Sorry.
Although I'm taken aback by what I'm seeing, I shouldn't really be surprised. We've moved beyond pile 'em high and sell it cheap. Why shouldn't they follow us?
You are profitable, by the way, as a company, are you? Or are you still at the investment phase, investing in it so much that you're not making any money?
We are profitable. In 2009, we have made 8.3 billion RMB in our revenue, and then our profit...
8.3 billion, that's about 830 million pounds.
Yes, more or less.
That's a
and
lot.
then we make 0.9 billion RMB revenue.
Right, 100 million pounds of profit, a profit.
Yeah, profit.
God, that puts you in quite a big league, actually. I wonder whether we, in the West, should be terribly worried about this, because we've been waiting desperately, really, for China to be rich enough for us to sell lots of things into China. And the day you become rich enough for us to start selling loads and loads of things to you, pay back all the money we borrowed from you in the last 10 years, you're going to be selling the stuff to yourself, all this nice, high-end, fashionable stuff. Crumbs, what are we going to do?
And that's a question many people are asking. What happens when the next hit chocolate bar is Chinese, not British? We might have been great at inventing things in the past, but why shouldn't others be as good as us in the future? National champions like GlaxoSmithKline run out in the front now. But companies elsewhere are chasing behind.
We run constantly with that feeling just behind our neck that if we don't succeed on the next round, then you aren't going to be here in 15 or 20 years' time. And that's why, in many ways, that creates the energy in the organisation. There are no guarantees. There is no 11th commandment which says there should be a drug company in Britain and it should be called GlaxoSmithKline. you better succeed, because if you don't, there is nothing that's going to save you.
But there's no need to be alarmed. From what I've seen, at our best, we're among the world's best.
UK designers are very good. They're very versatile, problem-solving types.
The world changes, the problems to be solved change. New industries come, old industries go. The UK can't do everything. It has to focus on the highest value activities it can find.
The best answer comes from a blend of some of that British problem-solving mentality together with some specialist but actually quite narrow expertise that you find in engineers in some other regions of the world, you know, for example in America.
We can't be complacent, but our whole economic history is one of running to stay ahead and getting richer in the process. It's no different now. It all comes back to the value chain. As the world changes, as other countries get richer, new opportunities arise. We have to find new nooks and crannies which best use our skills and which will enable us to pay our way. Britain is in the global top division when it comes to science and creativity, and the income they generate will continue to pay many of the country's bills. But one important observation: we can never be entirely reliant on intellectual property alone. That reminds me of those old sci-fi movies where there's some evil brain in a jar trying to survive without any kind of body. We don't want to be like that. We need people who are not cut out to be wearing white coats in laboratories or black collars in advertising agencies. We need them to be productive as well. We need regions which don't have clusters of knowledge workers. We need them to have industries of their own. We want to be clever, but we don't only want to be clever. Next time on Made in Britain, our services economy, where over 3/4 of us work, from call centres in Sunderland. This is a bedroom or a lounge? This is a... Oh, it is a bedroom. It is a bedroom. It is a bedroom. It is. To estate agents in London. Can this help us pay our way in the world?
You've got nice indeed. Again, the same
the views over the park.
To discover more about how Britain pays its way in the world and to contribute your own experiences to the Open University's online toolkit, visit bbc.co.uk/Made in Britain and follow the link to the Open University.
From black holes to white dwarves, James May discovers things you need to know about the universe in a moment. And then it's Newsnight at the new time of 10:40.